welcome back. Now we're going to talk about how we can create our very own form and the questions we often ask ourselves in terms of the types of input we want to use. We're probably not going to create our own components and go really deep here into what that looks like just yet, because we want to, just come up with some quick concepts in terms of what types of content we're going to see on the page. Step number 1. Where are we going to find a form on our page within our product for our client habitual? I think you'll probably see login and, sign up. And I think probably the biggest form we'll probably see is the registration. And that's about it, really. This is a type of product that doesn't necessarily have a lot of forms, but registration is huge. And especially with this product, I think it's going to be pretty integral to the way people kind of maybe talk about why they're joining the product, or maybe to pick some interests, maybe narrowing down those interests. So let's jump right in to how we can create some form elements for our client. When I think about our client, they need to have a registration, and I need to think about those different types of elements. So I'm just gonna create a frame. Let's press F, and we're gonna just use one of these screens. We'll just call it registration. Okay, so we're gonna kind of just create a wireframe, just so we get a good indication of what we want to build, and then we can eventually get to a higher fidelity. So when a user comes to the page, you'll probably see an input. They'll probably see 48's probably good. Don't want to get too fancy just yet. Let's give it a stroke. We can actually start creating some pieces if we wanted to over here. I'm going to create a couple of elements that I can just easily reuse. I know I said I wasn't going to go for creating it, but maybe that's the best course of action. What else do we have here? Let's make a button. And we are just going to fill that with brand color. I don't know if I have the brand color, but we can just kind of get close to it right now. Oops. Maybe that's our primary button. And we'll put some text in there. Same primary. Okay. I like a lot. This could be 16 pixels. Make this boom. We'll call it primary button. So we are kind of creating our own little components. We can make this white. I know it's probably not accessible, but we can kind of fine tune it. Sometimes accessibility could be a little wonky in terms of what is actually readable and what isn't. This is probably bordering that line. It's probably not accessible. If we check right now, let's do contrast. It's probably not. Yeah, it fails, but it may be more legible than black, which is probably actually accessible. So that's our primary button. We can just go over here. We can make a secondary. So probably have a secondary, a back button. And that frame, we won't have anything in it. He'll fill. But the primary button's color will probably be a black. So that's good. We'll just call it secondary. And remember what I said about constraints. So we can do that. I can do that. Perfect. So we have a secondary and a primary. We have an input up there. I think that's fine for now. I guess let's just call this our components for now. Just so we have some basic inputs. We may have some checkboxes. So it's this is an input field. Or we'll just call it field. We probably should have some text in there. Input text, that's totally fine. And we can bump that to regular. Okay. I'm not going to worry too much about that. We do need to, however, create some checkboxes, possibly. I'm envisioning that there will be checkboxes in our future. 3240. So I'm still using that base unit of 8 pixels to create my components here. That's a little big. Bump it down to 32. Change the border radius. I think that's fine. We do need some text for it though. Checkbox. Text. Let's just do this. So, I mean, we can start creating some of our components. I mean, they don't necessarily need to be components. It's good to just kind of prep before we even start. Okay, I think that's enough. Cool. Let's create another frame. Select F. So when a user first comes to our registration, I think like the first thing we'll probably ask them to do is maybe like, we'll probably say something like, welcome. Let's, take that in there. We'll say something like, welcome, how are you? And we'll probably ask them to possibly like, add a profile image. And like in terms of the input, it's kind of tough because we don't necessarily have like an input for the actual, like, it could just be a button that like uses their phone to like find an image. And that's all handled on like the iPhone side or the Android side. So that's a discussion to have with your developers. So I'll just do this. And let's just go to Iconifier. Let's use material design icons. Then we'll just say profile. Oh, person. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to take that. I'm just going to detach it. Command C. Let's bring that into our registration. And there we go. Okay, so we have like a thing here, like a little image. Maybe we should have some text below because that is very vague. Add a photo so other members, I don't know if other members know who you are. Or actually, add a photo so, why would they add a photo? So you can customize your experience. This is probably like a nice to have feature. Like, do they really need a photo? Probably not. It's really about exploring if you need something versus like if it's a nice to have. So the button here may say upload a photo. And the secondary could be something like skip this for now. So we want that primary action to be much bigger, much more prominent. I mean, we can even like go over here and make this a little bit less obvious. And I think another thing is we need to let people know this, since it's going to be a multi-step process. So we need to let people know like what step of the process they're in. Let's just change that. So step 1 of 4. Okay, and let's just bold that so it's pretty obvious. I mean, we can actually just leave it at the top. I'm not sure about the whole layout of the pages yet. So if we copy that, we can just change that over there. And the next one could be like, what's your main reason for joining? It's good to understand why they want to join. I just pop this up here. We're not being too like crazy in terms of like how we structure just yet, but we could like essentially put these items in a frame that has auto layout, and that whenever we adjust something, it's going to bump it down. I'll show you what that looks like. So if we select these and with the Option Command G, we have a frame. And if you select auto layout, it will automatically position them vertically. You can even do it horizontally, but it's going to push it to the right over here. So you can space it any which way you want. So if I want to like adhere to a pixel base, I'll probably do like 24 pixels. And if I add to this, it's just going to keep on pushing the content down, and you can just like keep things incredibly consistent. It's for your own sanity, to be honest. Okay, so this will help us make some great recommendations. So when I'm thinking about this registration, I want to get as much info about the user as possible with kind of making it fun. Checkboxes are kind of hard to hit on mobile sometimes unless you make this whole tappable field like tappable or like just easy to interact with. So we can like do optional kind of like checkboxes or like radio buttons. And I'll show you what we can do here. So I've taken like the primary button over here. And I'm just going to make this fill like white. I'm going to go in and I'm going to make that fill black. Perfect. And I am going to also apply a stroke. And that stroke is going to be like we'll just do 50% of black. So, I mean, there you go. We kind of have like a radio button that they can click. So we can give them some options, like maybe one of them is discover new and exciting products. The next one could be make month to month shopping easier. So that is like definitely a big thing in terms of like shopping and in terms of like the usefulness of this product. If you do a lot of month to month shopping, you have a lot of like things that you constantly buy over and over again. If we know more about you, we can easily make that experience much better. Get relevant recommendations. So there's a couple of options, and like if I select one, so for this use case, I'm just going to select it just to kind of showcase what that's going to look like. So I'm going to do that. And that is going to be white. And that's what it could look like. So all of a sudden we kind of have a nice little active state there too. We can create a component for that. What I've done here is I've actually removed this get because this is a mandatory. I'm thinking about this actually being mandatory because it's pretty big in terms of like the type of question we're asking. And if they don't fill it out, we can give them like a disable state. So just make sure disable states are easy to read in terms of contrast. And when I do select that, it will move to the active state here. You can work along with me and just think about the type of content we're creating for in terms of the registration. I mean, there's so many different things we can do. We can just think about like the different types of like inputs that we need and the different types of processes that we're going to like design for. So I'm designing this registration process. Actively, as I'm kind of coming up with these concepts, I'm thinking about the different questions I'm asking users. So like, probably at this point, I want them to just start picking some like interests. So get started by picking some interests. And I mean, I don't even know. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And they can essentially like, we could create like cards for them to make it look more fun. Like checkboxes are kind of boring. So for something like this, we could create like cards. I'm not sure what's in the cards. Maybe, actually, I think it would be best if we do something like this. Let's create a frame. First square. And we'll put a text in that frame. And we'll call it something like music. That's a little too big, but let's go down to 20 pixels. And that's fine. This is going to be a different type of checkbox. And the background color, let's give it a fill. So it's a little bit more interesting than it is now. And there you go. Like, we easily have like a checkbox that we can select. So there it is. Remember what I said about constraints? So if I position this like that, I'm gonna try and make this almost a square. So if I position this like that, there we go. Doesn't need to be perfect. We have a bunch of different options. And if they will do the same thing over here. Oops, I forgot to actually make that continue. This one can be continue as well. For now, at least. I don't know what this is going to be. It could be like an image. It could be like a colored square. I think we need to really kind of think about that a little bit more in terms of what that active state looks like. But that's when we get more in depth in terms of like actually creating the component. But now I know what types of questions I'm asking. And I'm asking them to upload a photo for customization purposes, making their experience a little bit more delightful. It's not needed, so I gave them like a skip option. I asked them why they're joining, because maybe the types of products we do push to them is relevant based off of this question. If they want to have like a month-to-month subscription of things, like we could do something like that. If they also discover new and exciting products, like we can push like new products to them. But if they want relevant recommendations, we could take a little bit of both in terms of the types of products we decide to push to them. If we think about this from a data like collecting perspective, this will definitely help us kind of learn more about our users. So if people keep on creating this, we'll know the types of users we're getting in terms of like what they're trying to achieve. Are they trying to are the majority of our users doing month-to-month subscriptions or something like that? If that's the case, then it could actually force us to pivot the purpose of the application. It moves away from relevant recommendations to more so like a one-stop shop where we constantly just ship to you every single month. And it's constantly relevant and it's constantly based off of what you need. So take that into consideration in terms of the types of questions you're asking. Even for over here, like getting started, I've kind of given them the option to select different types of interests. I could have sports. I could have like tech. Another option could be like gaming. I've given them a bunch of different interests. I don't know why I have 4. I mean, we could have 4. We can even go at a deeper level and think about narrow it down. What type of music do you like? Do you like to listen to like vinyl? Do you like to listen to live music? Are you thinking about like buying speakers? Like if you've selected something like fashion, like are you into sneakers, etc.? Or if there's anything else, can you add that? So we could even go even deeper here. I think we're at a good spot right now just to get some basic information from our user. What we can do for now is, what I would do is actually put this together and put it into a prototype and test with users immediately, test fast. Where here we can just get started. At the end, we'll probably have like a nice little screen that just says like, woohoo, you did it, like these are your results, or we could show them results if that's important. I don't know. It's really going to depend based off of like how we validate our assumptions. But this is essentially how you go about like thinking through a form. You got to ask yourself the questions of like, well, especially with this case, in terms of registration, what types of questions am I going to ask our users? And like, how do I break that down? Like, what types of inputs am I using based off of those questions? Now, this is a really simple form, and I'm sure eventually in your career, you are definitely going to have much more complex forms. So take it step by step. Start with sketching. Move on to like user flows in terms of like figuring out what that process kind of looks like. And then jump into like a product like Figma and really start to figure out those details. So that's how you create your own form within Figma.